Is the rest? That's fine. We should put like that.
Yeah, that's how it's.
I'm like,
Confuse it with the intense one
yeah.
because you're looking at it this morning.
Tabang, I see we're already 4 minutes past
I think we can
6.
start, Rianda. I think everything. Okay, thanks, Adele. I think we can start, Rianda. The rest we didn't really make some inputs on them.
So I just want to confirm, Adele, I will start.
43.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. I can
Correct?
display the welcome
Okay.
slide and then
I'm going to stop sharing now. So I start at slide 43.
Yeah, and Tabang, are you starting?
no, you are the I'm gonna do the opening, then you start. I'll
Okay.
be coming after Rianda.
Okay.
And then we're gonna have a short break, maybe after Rianda, and then I will take over afterwards. A 10 minutes break, okay? I'll be coming with a new presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Are we all good?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna start the meeting now, and then we're live. So as soon as you see that the meeting is started, you can go ahead. Okay. Okay. All right.
Good evening, tutors, and welcome to our second tutor workshop for 2026. Maybe let me start by introducing myself. My name is Thabang Serolela. I am a manager in the CPD and registrations department, and I'm responsible for the intern portfolio of evidence. Tonight, I am with my colleagues from the office as well as the representatives of assessors and moderators who will be taking you through the presentation. And we are happy to have you here with us tonight. Thank you so much for making time to join. There are a few house rules that I want to just go through them with you, which are displayed on the screen. The first one, it says to ask question, please use the question and answer function on Teams or the comment section if you are joining using YouTube. And then the session is scheduled for 3 hours. Please stay with us until the end to get all information firsthand. Towards the end of the workshop, you will be requested to complete a survey to confirm your attendance and rate the workshop. The presentation will be available on the website after the second workshop, which is today. So the presentation will be available on 12 February 2026, that is tomorrow. And then the presentations tonight is divided into 2 sections. So the 2 presenters will do the first section, and then we will have a short break of 10 minutes, and then I'll do the last part, and then after my presentation, we'll take questions. And with those few words, I'm going to hand over to my colleague to render the first presentation. And thank you. Over to you, Adele.
Good evening, colleagues. Tabang, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm Adele Nadia, and I'm also a tutor for interns. And we are here tonight to guide you with Pharmacy Council to maybe just make your internship experience or the experience that you have as a tutor a little bit easier. and to give you some information that you can use through the year. So first of all, welcome to this evening, and we hope if you have a lot of questions that we can address it for you. I will start the first part of the presentation, and then my colleague Rihanna Joubert will continue. So first of all, we have an outline for the presentation for this evening that we will be going through. So first of all, we'll do an introduction session, then the resources, and we'll talk about what are the portfolio of evidence or the CPDs, the role that you as a tutor play. We have some administrative information, and then we have the portfolio of evidence with an example to guide you to assist your interns. And you will see the presentation is quite stacked, so it's quite full, but we want to give you this as a resource for you to use for the rest of the year. So important resources that's available to you and to your intern. You can see there's a lot of information available on Pharmacy Council's website, and they have also provided a list of the important information. And I really want you to stress to your interns to make sure that when they submit anything or when they do write the exam, that they make use of the most current information that is available, because we do see in the CPD submissions or the POE submissions and other submissions that interns are using outdated information that's available, especially for the good pharmacy practice and legislation. So you can go through the list. You can see it's quite extensive. Everything that is available should be available for your intern. So if we go to the introduction section, competence in the portfolio of evidence is very important for our interns, because this gives them a way to develop to become a pharmacist. It follows the CPD cycle that all of us are quite familiar with, but interns do struggle because they have to do this to show that they are competent. So it's far more comprehensive for our interns to complete their CPDs. And why is this important? If we look at the WHO model, the World Health Organization do say that we should be lifelong learners, we should be team players, we should be communicators, and most importantly, we should be teachers. And this is why it's very important for us to align with this and to assist our interns to becoming pharmacists. So we should use this to assist them to build confidence and to encourage them to practice ethically and to prepare them for future practice. So if we look at our roles that we have to play, we have to have various hats that we put on for our interns to be successful. So I know some of us, you have such a lot of responsibilities in the pharmacy. There's a lot of administrative tasks, there's dispensing, but for the sake of the interns, we also have to be mentors, we have to coach our interns, and we have to be a role model. So it's very important for our interns to be successful that we provide them some guidance, we give them support, we give additional career advice, sometimes a little bit of emotional support, that we share our knowledge and we inspire them to grow as interns and help them set goals and to think critically. You can see each of these roles have different meaning, but everything is taken into one. Have to shape our interns academically and personal growth. So we should focus on skills building, problem solving. We should help them achieve. And then in the role model, which is very important, is we should display the skills that we want our interns to practice when they are pharmacists. So we should show them how to be a professional, how to work ethically, and how to work with integrity. And that is very important for our tutors. And that's why we as tutors should also stay competent and knowledgeable. We should give guidance, and we should be empathetic and supportive with our interns, because it is a big shift from undergraduate to internship for this year. Okay, so what do tutors need to do? So first of all, we need to be responsible for educating our new graduates. So we have to literally take them under our wing. We have to provide an introduction to them, a learning plan. We have to give them equipment, materials, the programs, and access to all the information and literature that they need necessary to complete this year successfully. It's important to provide guidance on how they should be performed day to day and to show them how to be independent and responsible decision makers. And that is very important for our interns because they do tend to be dependent on the pharmacist, but we need to develop them to think independently and be responsible for their own actions. And this should be to the benefit of the public. So the benefits of being a tutor for us, we need to support the future of the pharmacy profession. It's very important that we make sure that our profession is strong in the future. We should diversify our own skills and those of the intern. And as I said, strengthen pharmacy practice as well, not only the profession. We should maintain our own knowledge, and that's why we also have to do our CPDs. But by teaching or tutoring our interns, we can also maintain and keep our knowledge up to date in various other ways by teaching effectively, communicating effectively, and assessing our interns effectively. We can also use this as a potential recruitment tool for new qualified pharmacists. So if you are very happy with your intern, you can consider giving them a permanent position once they have qualified as pharmacists. So essentially, we as tutors, we have to learn with our interns. We have to share our experiences with interns. We have to let them develop and develop ourselves, to let them succeed and become true lifelong learners. So we are lifelong learners and we should instill that in them as well so that they become lifelong learners to benefit the public. So now we are moving over to the internship program. So the next slide is more applicable to our hospital complexes in the public sector. We know there are various sections within hospital groups or health complexes, and you can see that there must be at least one registered tutor linked to approved premises that should be responsible for the practical training of an intern. It's not allowed to delegate the supervisory responsibilities of our interns to community service pharmacists, and it's important that facilities where the intern will be rotating, it must be approved and recorded by Pharmacy Council before the internship commences. So you can have a look at the facility or the hospital where the rotation should take place for the purpose of training, as well as the name of the pharmacist under whose supervision the intern will work must be indicated in a contract, and that must be sent to council. And the in the various sections of the hospital should be for the purposes of practical training and nothing else. So if we go to the legislative requirements, as you are aware, no person may commence with internship unless they are registered with Pharmacy Council. And we all know to register with Pharmacy Council, an intern has to complete the contract. And it's between the tutor and the prospective intern. They have to fill that in. The practical training premises have to be approved, and the tutor also has to be approved with Pharmacy Council. And I'm sure all of you are aware, and you can also find the information in the intern tutor manual that's available on Council's website. Registration as a tutor. I'm also sure all of you that are here are already registered as tutors. And as you know, we moved over into the new register, and we now have to pay the annual fee. And remember, the annual fee is published yearly, so you can have a look at that. I'm sure all of us have completed the application. We do comply with our CPD requirements. I see Mr. Maloka made an infographic video to remind pharmacists to complete their CPD. So I hope all of your CPDs are completed. You have to pay the tutor registration fee, and you have to pay your annual fee for a tutor as determined by council. So remember, that's different from the annual fee for us. So just have a look at that to make sure that you are active on Pharmacy Council's website. So if we continue, it's just for notice also as well. The forms needed for internship. If an intern wants to see their contract, the session of contract of internship form is available, and that should be completed online. The declaration of 400 hours, it's important to note that that is applicable to academic institutions, our manufacturing interns, as well as those in wholesale, and that should also be completed online by the supervising pharmacist. The progress reports that can be completed or reviewed by the tutor also online, and application for registration as a pharmacist is also to be completed online. So you can just familiarize yourself with those. You have access through your online profile with Pharmacy Council, and you can complete those online. So I'm sure, as all of you know, the overall requirements for an intern, they have to successfully complete the pre-registration examination. They have to complete the 6 portfolio of evidence activities. They have to be registered for 365 days, and the tutor has to submit the progress reports, favorable progress reports, on Pharmacy Council's website on the online platform. But I am sure all of you are aware of these requirements, and you can find them on your online profile. So the portfolio of evidence is one of, I think it's a difficult, or the interns perceive it as a difficult activity to complete, and they have to do 6 of them, 1 from each domain. So they have to select 1 competency standard from domain 1, 3, 4, and 6. They have to fulfill at least 75% of the behavioral statements. I will get to the behavioral statements. As you are aware, competency standard 5.3, ethical and legal practice, is compulsory for all interns. And 6.3 is recommended for academic interns only because it relates to undergraduate education. And then very important for interns, and we'll get to the planning and the submission of the CPDs, the first 9 submissions are free of charge. And from the 10th submission, there is a fee of 327 Rand, but we do want to stress that all interns can, and it is possible to do only 6 submissions, maybe 7 or 8, but there's no need for them to go up to 10 if they follow the recommendations that we've made in the workshop, as well as recommendations in this workshop. So if we look at the portfolio of evidence deadlines for this year, the interns also have access to this, and it's also in the manual provided to them. It's very important for them to plan their CPD submissions, or their portfolio of evidence submissions. You can see there are a number of dates. Do remind your interns to be mindful of the red dates if they want to write a specific exam, because then the CPDs or the portfolio of evidence might not be assessed in time for them to be able to qualify for the exam. So if they do not qualify, the implications of not meeting the verification or submission deadline is a delay in the assessment, a delay in the release of the results. Then they have to pay a late booking fee for the exam, and it can go up to delay a commencement of community service, or even an extended internship period, which we really do not want for our interns. So please have a look. You can see there's a submission date for the intern. Then there's a verification date for us as tutors, and there's a SAPC release date of the results. And you can also tell your interns, because they also say, oh, when the results coming, when will we be able to see? The dates are provided in the manual, and we do stick to these dates. So to qualify for the pre-reg examination, the submission of the portfolio of evidence entries needs to be submitted by the dates that we've shown. It's very important for the interns to encourage them to submit their portfolio of evidence in time. And if they are registered for 6 months, they have to submit 6 and be competent in 3, and more than 9 months, all 6 should be submitted. You can see again, to not pay the late booking fee, they should stick to the, I say not the red submission dates, the black ones. And there you can see Council has given guidance on the exam dates, the normal portfolio of evidence deadlines, and the last date for booking for the pre-registration exam. So do communicate with your intern and just assist them. I think the first part of the year they are quite flustered, and just sit down with them and say, okay, if you want to write the June exam, or the August exam, my apologies, you have to submit by June to be able to book by the end of June, or what the case may be. So do sit with them and plan their calendar for them, just to take note, because they do think the still long, there's still 11 months left, and then one day they say, oh, I have to book and I haven't completed my portfolio of evidence activities. So please sit with your intern and do a calendar for them to see what is expected, to be able to stick to these deadlines. So the progress report timelines, it's also available in the intern manual. So you can see there's our 12-week, our 24, and the progress report that should be submitted. You can see them set out there, and there's also available on your profile with Pharmacy Council. You can see academic, manufacturing, and wholesale interns. They have other progress reports, and they have the additional 400-hour practical training declaration that should be made. So just make sure that you complete these online on your profile, and take note when these should be done. So now we get to the portfolio of evidence, and you can see the portfolio of evidence was based on the 2018 competency standards, and they describe what newly qualified pharmacists should be able to do when they enter the level of practice to meet their scope of practice needs. So the framework, the competency standards, there are 6 domains, and then you can see there are various competency standards, and each competency standard has various behavioral statements, but we'll show you the structure in the next slides as well. So if we get the question a lot, why do we have to do CPDs? Why do we need to professionally develop, and why do we have to keep doing this? So it's very important for us as healthcare professionals. We know everything changed. We know there's new developments, there's new products, there's new ways of doing things, and that's why CPDs are so important. So we have to develop, we have to enhance our competency, and we have to stay up to date with current legislation, with current movements in our environment, and we have to demonstrate competence in our area of practice. So it's very important for us as pharmacists as well. We all have to do 6 activities, or at least 6 activities yearly. So you can see it's a process by which registered persons maintain and enhance their competence through the year, through their professional careers. So it's very important to stay updated. And even if you have an intern, for example, and you struggle to communicate with your intern, maybe suggest that you find a communication CPD, or what the case may be. So for us as tutors, there are so many things that we can improve, or assist with assessment, or what the case may be, to assist our interns. So it's very important for us as well to develop and stay and just demonstrate our competence. So CPD terminology, we've spoken about that. There's domain, there's competency standards, and there's behavioral statements. So we will look at them now. So the 6 domains, we all know them. Number 1 is public health, then there's safe and rational use of medicine, supply of medicine and medical devices, organizational and management skills, professional and personal practice, and that's a compulsory one for interns, and education, critical analysis, and research. So those are developed within the South African context, and it's all practice settings, but the interns do need to be selective depending on where they are doing their internship. And that is where we as tutors can also assist them to make sure that the specific activity is applicable to where they are currently spending their time. So the competency standard, you can see it's part of the domain. It gives us an introduction into the domain. It gives us the competencies, the behavioral statements, the entry level that's available. That's the first 3 years of practice, and that's where our interns are. 3 to 7 years, that's a bit later in our practice, and advanced practice is more than 7 years. In the manual, you will also see an assessment tick box, and that must be considered whether the evidence that we shows that we are able to do a behavior or that we have learned a new behavior. So the competency framework is the next thing. So you can see we have a domain 5. 5.3 is the ethical and legal practice. And then we have the behavioral statements, and that is what the intern should provide evidence for. So each domain has multiple competency standard, and each competency standard has a different number of behavioral statements, but you can find that in the intern manual. So the next slide, you can just see what it looks like in the manual. You can see we have the introduction section, we have the capabilities and the outcomes, and there we have the competency standard 5.3, and then we have the behavioral statements for this and the tick box at the bottom. So it's very important for interns, and you must please assist them to read through all the behavioral statements and make sure that this activity is possible for them to do in the area of practice that they are currently working in, and they will be able to provide evidence for all the behavioral statements. So they do need some guidance in that area as well. So if we go on to the next slide, we can see it's important for us to ensure and maintain quality of the CPDs. The intern manual says if a tutor is not pleased with the authenticity of the evidence and the quality of the intern's portfolio of evidence, he or she may, and we do think must, after discussing it with the intern, return the portfolio of evidence to the intern to make the necessary corrections. So it's very important in the verification process to go through it critically, make sure that the intern has successfully addressed all the requirements for the submission before we send it through to Pharmacy Council for assessment. So have a checklist to evaluate the quality of the submission and the relevance. Are the learning activities aligned with the intern roles and goals? Is there evidence of the relevant knowledge and acquired skills? Are the outcomes specific, measurable, and linked to professional improvement? And does the submission follow the required format? And there are various tools in the manual that you can use to guide the intern and to assist them to make sure that the submission will be successful. To gain a deeper understanding of the portfolio of evidence for the interns, we must provide constructive feedback to them, request evidence and check for confidentiality, calculation errors, current legislation and the relevant legislation, plagiarism and falsified evidence. We do see some falsified evidence as well, calculation errors. So please check for that. And confidentiality, we had a submission with the Schedule 6 register. The intern was so focused on his patient that he only covered his patient's name in the Schedule 6 register and left all the other patients that was not applicable to his submission in the Schedule 6 register. So please just check for them. They get so focused on their activity that they forget to look at anything else. So we also suggest provide post-submission feedback, discuss the feedback that they receive, encourage self-assessment, and promote that they learn from this and improve the future submission. Maintain quality assurance, compare the submissions from the previous submissions, use peer review. That's also very important. You can ask somebody else maybe to look at this. Arrange one-on-one review sessions to discuss feedback and clarify concerns. Ask interns to evaluate their own submission against the feedback to foster some self-awareness and to evaluate what was said. Encourage interns to revise their submission based on the feedback and assist them with that, please. Our interns do struggle. Evaluate the intern's submission against previous ones to track the progress if they were not successful. Involve another tutor or a peer for additional insights, and identify gaps. And it's very important, please assist our interns with this. They do struggle initially, their first or few submissions, and then they really do understand the process, and then it gets easier. So initially, your input will be very important to our interns. So it's very important to have fun when tutoring and make the learning outcomes continuous with the intern. that is very important for the interns to learn from this and to grow from this, but quality is very important. So the portfolio of evidence requirements, as we said earlier, one from each domain. All 6 domains should be successful. And please encourage interns not to submit all the 6 entries at once. We do see that some interns wait too long or too late in the year before they start submitting. They discover, oh, I won't be able to write the exam, and then they rush and they submit 6 entries at once, and then they make a small mistake and everything gets sent back. So we do encourage them just maybe to submit 1 or 2, maybe 3, get feedback, see if they're on the right track, get some feedback from their assessor, and then submit the rest. And that's why planning is so important, that they have sufficient time to submit maybe 2 or 3 in the first cycle, then the next 2 or 3, depending on what the comments were. So that's very important, not to wait too long or to submit all 6 at once. Because if they made a small mistake that could have been fixed, then they will go over the 10 submissions, and then they will have to pay, which we do not really want our interns to do. Encourage them to have sufficient time through the year. As we said, planning is very, very important, and please assist them with their planning, and this will increase the chances of success as you would obtain feedback from the assessor and the moderator. So if you submit 2 or 3, get some feedback. Hopefully they were successful, and then, submit the next 3, and then they only had 6 submissions for the year, and they will be able to write the exam on time. So for each domain, we know there are competency standards, and then each competency standard has various behavioral statements. So if there are 1 to 3 behavioral statements, they have to address all of them. If there are more than 4, they have to address at least 3 of them, 75%. So you can consult the intern manual for the behavioral statements. But we do suggest to the interns, if it's possible to provide evidence for all the behavioral statements, please do that, because maybe there was an interpretation difference, or the assessor might feel this behavioral statement wasn't really addressed sufficiently, but they did address more, so that can be, then they still adhere to the 75%. So if at all possible, advise your interns to address as many behavioral statements as possible with the evidence they have available. It's very important that every portfolio of evidence entry must reflect the intern's own work, and no group activities are allowed for the portfolio of evidence submissions. So now we go to the CPD cycle, and all of you as pharmacists are familiar with the cycle. We have all done our CPDs, and we are compliant with legislation. And the first step we all know is reflection. So very important for the reflection for the interns. They should make sure that they address all the requirements for a reflection. It should be relevant to what they want to learn and be related to the chosen competency standard. It should describe what they intend to do and not simply copy for the title, the wording, and the learning title must describe the unique activity. So by reading the title, you should already know what this activity is about. So please encourage them to make it descriptive, interesting titles to describe their own activity. So then we go further on with the reflection. So as we know, the reflection, you can see in the checklist. And the checklist, please encourage your intern to use the checklist to assess. I always tell my intern, make a copy of this, assess your own CPD, and then bring the assessment with you so that we can go through this together. And that really makes them think critically about their submission, because they'll say, okay, it's a 3. And then I say, okay, but where is what you hope to achieve? And then you can see, but they don't really know what I'm talking about. So they all, in mark a 3, and then means, okay, show me where this is, or show me where that is. The second time they come with a checklist, then you can see that there's some learning that took place, and they now really understand the process. So let them complete this. So check, is it their own learning need? what reflective prompts can you then give the intern? You can ask them open-ended questions, use examples from your own CPD journey, and encourage a growth mindset. So think about how you can create a safe space for open discussion. Are you modeling good reflective practices, and are you actively assisting the intern to identify relevant learning needs? And from my side, I really find it useful to tell interns, use this and bring it with you when we look at your entry. And then you can really see they now went and see, okay, is this and this and this, is that addressed? And it's a very good learning curve to make them cognizant of this and make them, actually make them use it or suggest that they use it very strong. So if we go on, there's also a checklist that they can use in the manual. So just the basics. Is there a title? Is it short? Is it specific? Is it related to standard? Is it concise in your own words and not just a copy? So they can, when they start this initially, they can complete this as well to make sure that they've addressed all the requirements and then use the additional checklist. I think it's on page 34 to 35. I'm not sure the updated manual, but I do think it's that. But they can just check so they can do both. Let them bring both. And if they say there's a title and then you say, but it's not a title, and you say, okay, why did you say yes there? So this is a very good tool to use to get the communication and the critical thinking going with your intern. And I know there's not much time always, but if they've already completed this, you can just have a quick look and see, are you agreeing with the intern and have they really done this? So then we go to the planning section. So the second step, as we all know, is the planning. So here we, in this submission, we exactly are we going to do? How are we going to learn this? So what are my options? So we want to see the planning linked to the behavior, planning accordingly. So you have to give evidence for all the behavioral statements. So you have to plan how you are going to get this evidence. So if they plan, I'm going to consult the GPP, that's linked to behavioral statement A, or what the case may be. And as I said, if they say the GPP, then to section 2.1.8 about compounding, because that's where we can find the relevant minimum requirements. So we want specific details, page numbers, section numbers, if it's various versions of a book, which one they are used. Give a reason why you selected that resource. If you select the GPP, why did you choose that? If you selected the Pharmacy Act, why did you select that? And then they have to critically think, what evidence can I submit to support my learning? And then always remember, planning is written in the future tense. I am planning to consult the GPP section 2.1.8 for the minimum standards related to compounding to complete this mixture, or what the case may be. Don't only describe how you plan to proceed, but they have to say what they are going to do, how and why, and when are they going to do this. For example, if they plan a public health campaign, they have to tell us when it's going to be, how do they plan to do it, are they going to advertise it, or what the case may be. And then you can see there's again the grid, and it's and to get the 3. So if they've given themselves a 3, we want to see a detailed plan in future tense. We want to see the reasoning for the references, the specific details of the resources, and linking to at least 75% of the behavioral statements. So you can see if they've used this, because this is in essence the assessment grid that council use, they would be successful if they have addressed all of these and all of these sections are addressed and in the submission. So the next step of the planning. So there's again this checklist. Has the intern clearly stated how they are going to learn? Has the intern identified the resources? Explain how they will use them. Has the intern made sure not to just write what he intends to do, but we also want to see how they are going to do it, and is it in future tense. So this they can use its initial checklist, and then the finer checklist they can make sure that it is up to standard. So what can you do as a tutor to assist your intern with planning? So you can use reflective tools like a self-assessment questionnaire or a skills gap analysis, or the tool Pharmacy Council has provided in the manual. Suggest specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. Instead of improved communication skills, suggest that they complete a CPD or a short course or an online module on counseling techniques. Design a training plan for them. If there are workshops, case studies, or role play, whatever you can think of to assist your intern to develop their skills. Provide clear instructions or give them a demonstration. Use a logbook or a checklist for tracking milestones if you have set some milestones for them. Gather feedback from the intern and refine the plan. As you know, that's also a cycle. We assess the whole year and give improvement and additional learning, and then we assess again. So go through that process with your intern to make sure that they continue developing through the year, and encourage the intern to reflect on their progress and to share the insights with you that they have gained so far. But a training plan, as you can see on the left-hand side, a training plan for an intern to provide some structure to the internship year is very important, and we can use some reflective techniques with our interns as well. So the third step that we all know is the implementation phase, and this is where we actually write what we did. So that's in the past tense, and we can say, I did this, I consulted the GPP, I hosted my public health campaign on this date in the venue or where it may be. Reference is made to the evidence in the implementation stage, and it is linked to 75% of the behavioral statements, and it is linked to the evidence. And again, we have the nice grid that the intern can use to evaluate themselves, and then you can check it. Look at the evidence, valid, authentic, current evidence to show at least 75% of the behavioral statements. And all three, it's annotated and show which behavioral statement it satisfies and how it is satisfying the behavioral statements. A lot of interns provide us with a lot of theory. So they provide us a page from the GPP, for example, but they haven't told us why it's there. Why did they include this? So a lot of the times the evidence is quite lacking because we don't know why it's included in the evidence or what the intern is trying to prove with this. So annotations are very important for the evidence to give meaning to the evidence. So the evidence checklist, there you can see of the implementation checklist, as the intern described what is going to do, as the intern included where, when, what, how, as the intern written in the past tense, labels to the evidence, that's the annotation, and have they linked the implementation to the evidence and to the behavioral statements? Has the intern checked that he matched his learning need, and have they addressed all the behavioral statements of the competency standard? So you can see if the checklist, if it's all yes ticks, the intern should be successful. Implementation must be supported by the evidence. So if the intern said, I did this, we want to see it in the evidence. So everything they said they did, they have to prove it with the evidence they supply. So the evidence checklist, you can see it's there as well. Is it sufficient? So it's for 75% of the behavioral statement at least. Has the intern annotate the evidence and is it clear? Has the evidence been annotated to show the behavioral statements, and does that match the implementation? Is the evidence clear and readable? And because it's very difficult to assess something that you cannot read. Is it a single file? And patient confidentiality. Please let your intern check every page. Sometimes they miss on the top or the bottom of a printout that the patient's name is still there, but still more about this later on in the presentation. So the last step that we go into is the evaluation step, and that is written in the future tense. So there you can see what have you learned related to the evidence. So this is not what you did, this is what you learned, what you What did you get from this activity? How has that impacted your practice? What have you done with this knowledge that you have gained? And how has it changed your practice? And then what's your future learning need? Because remember, this is a cycle. So we want to learn something, we plan, we learn it, and then we reevaluate. What else can we learn? What is still a learning need? So they have to give us a future learning need as well. And there again is the checklist. So you can see the checklist is very specific to all the phases. And please encourage your intern to use the checklist to make sure that they've addressed all the requirements. So has the intern clearly stated what they learned? Has the intern say how they applied it? Have they given specific examples, and have they identified a future learning need? So the evidence criteria, there will be more about that, as well as Dr. Hubert speaks about the evidence, and she'll show you it should be annotated. And annotation, we always talk about annotation. It's very important because the annotation gives meaning to the evidence, but you will see that in the Dr. Hubert's part of the presentation. It should be current, it should be valid, it should be authentic, and it should be enough, sufficient. So that's very important, that the evidence should adhere to these 5 criteria that we've set, and just assist your intern to make sure that they don't use undergraduate things. It is related to the competency standard, and they do prove what they are trying to prove. So the annotation of evidence, what is it? And their interns also struggle sometimes. Annotation is a mechanism that they use to give meaning to the evidence. If you just give a page from the GPP and you don't tell us why it's included, why did you use this page? What information on this page was useful to you, and how did you use the information subsequently in the rest of your activity? So say, for example, you're doing the compounding. It's easy to go to compounding everywhere. One of the steps in compounding is you must have all the required equipment. So let the intern highlight that. Say the GPP requires the equipment, or the SOP requires equipment. See photograph 6. That's where all the equipment is, and that's where I gathered all my equipment. So I used the information in the GPP, and this is the photograph or the document where you can see how I used this information. So the annotation will give meaning, but it should be legible and easy to read. It justifies the evidence. Why is this evidence there? And if they don't annotate, the assessor cannot understand why it's included. It must be planned and meaningful, not just a lot of scanned documents just for the sake of scanning documents. It must be relevant, and it must be linked to the behavioral statement. Sometimes interns provide a lot of valid evidence, but then you don't know which piece of evidence is related to which behavioral statement. So if they don't tell us this is for A, this is for B, then the assessor needs to decide, is it A, is it B? And then sometimes they might say, okay, I don't see E. But the intern intended, if they explain the specific document and says this should address behavioral statement E, and this is why, then the assessor might think, okay, I see what your train of thought was. I agree with you. So that's why you can see why annotation is so important for the interns to give meaning to the evidence. So it's not merely labels, it's not single words, it's not scribbles, and it should link to the behavioral statement. So the evidence should tell the story of what has been done to show the behavior and how it was mastered. So for example, annotation, if you can see a meaningful annotation, if they give us a date, you can see on the one side that this is the date. So we all know this is the date, but why was the date important? And that's where the meaning comes in. And that's what interns should do. They should give meaning to the evidence. So you can see the annotation on that side. For a prescription to be valid, it must be presented for dispensing within 1 month after it was written. Thus, this prescription is valid. So you can see the difference between the two, because we need to know that the intern knows that the prescription is only valid for 30 days. So That's why the annotations becomes extremely important. And I do think that this is where our interns need some guidance from us as tutors. And now I think I'm giving over to Dr. Joubert for her part of the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to see, can you hear me, Adele? Maybe you could just say, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So good evening, everyone. I'm going to take over now. So I'm a moderator of portfolio of evidence entries for interns, and I'm also a tutor of academic interns. But to continue here, we're going to quickly go through an example of a submission, and this is for domain 5.3, which is ethical and legal practice. So we have the title, Evaluation and Dispensing of a Schedule 6 prescription in terms of the ethical and legal requirements. And if you look at the, on the, where the interns submit and where we submit as well, it's indicated there, it's now the part here in bold, describe the learning need that you have identified to improve your knowledge and skills and what you hope to achieve after addressing this learning need. So this is the learning need that the intern provided while performing my role. My supervisor informed me that once I feel confident enough, I may dispense Schedule 6 prescriptions. I'm not yet comfortable dispensing a Schedule 6 prescription as I'm unfamiliar with the procedure and how it is handled in our pharmacy. So there is the learning need. I need to refresh my knowledge. I aim to ethically and legally dispense Schedule 6 prescriptions within my scope of practice and learn to perform my duties in accordance with the Pharmacist's Code of Conduct. I want to apply the Pharmacy Act and the Medicines and Related Substances Act in my daily practice. So that yellow part is then what the intern hoped to achieve after addressing this learning need. Just on this note, I know all of the interns, if they do 5.3, they submit Schedule 6s. And we also stress to them in the workshop that ethical and legal practice does not only pertain to Schedule 6 and handling, dispensing, procuring. It's everyday practice should be according to ethical and legal requirements. That is just on the side. I want to add that. So here is the planning, example of the planning. Briefly describe the reasoning behind your planning selections. So I will stay up to date on Schedule 6 legislation. I want to study the relevant laws and relevant amendments. And you can see that it's linked to C. I will use the Pharmacy Act, its newest amendments. I will review Schedule Section 36 of the Medicines and Related Substances Act. I will complete these actions while adhering to the professional standards and my responsibilities, and I will perform all these actions while adhering to professional indemnity standards and the code of conduct. So there's only linking to behavioral statement C, but there's not any linking to any of the other behavioral statements. Sometimes we can assume that if they review Section 36 of the MRSA, then it can link to behavioral statement A, and the Pharmacy Act can link to A. But it is advisable that they add here exactly to which behavioral statements, as we have indicated. You will see the BS standing for behavioral statement C, so they don't need to type out the whole word or both words, because we know they have limited characters that they may use. So if you read through this implementation, here they need to describe what they have done, the action that they take to achieve the outcome. And we've also said it must link to the evidence, it must link to the annotation. So here the intern described what he or she did, but you can see there is no reference made to the evidence or to the behavioral statements. If we look at this version of the implementation, you can see now they have linked it I've used the Pharmacy Act and its latest amendments to confirm my scope, and that I'm a registered pharmacist intern, and it's linked to evidence A and behavioral statement B. Also, I have the scope of practice of a pharmacist while being directly supervised, evidence B1. I valid the prescription in evidence A2. The prescription in evidence A3 according to the Medicine and Related Substances Act. So again, they link to the evidence and the behavioral statements. So the moment that you open up the evidence, then you can see how it is linked to one another, and it tells the story that the intern want to tell or want to show us. So here is just an example of the evidence. So you can see, yes, evidence A1. So it links up to, she said that the Pharmacy Act is in A1. Here is the annotation. This is the updated amendment that I used to determine the definition of a pharmacist intern, linking it to behavioral statement A. I'm currently practicing as a pharmacist intern at that specific clinic. Therefore, this definition applies to me. Again, linking it to A. According to the Pharmacy Act, you may only someone who is registered with Pharmacy Council may perform the task. So here is my registration certificate. And then pharmacy practice, here the legislation stipulates what the scope of practice is for her as a pharmacist. So she is allowed to perform tasks listed in this legislation. Here at the bottom, we have the prescription. So she said that she covered the patient's details to maintain confidentiality, and this is then linked to behavioral statement E, which refer to the code of conduct. Here's a checklist that she compiled, that she used to make sure that the prescription is valid. And here is then she linked it to the act again. So you can see this is what we mean with annotation and linking to the behavioral statements. And this is the continuation of the evidence. So just to clarify or to state that we did not include all of the evidence. What is not on here is behavioral statement C, which is staying up to date, although she listed it here. And then also the indemnity, proof of indemnity is also not included here. So we did not include all of the evidence, but as you can see, the evidence tells the story up to where it was dispensed and that it was checked by the pharmacist as well. So now we move to the evaluation, which is the last step. So after completing, I gained a clearer understanding of the legal and ethical aspects of dispensing and documenting the sale. I now understand my scope of practice. So this is what I've learned. I feel more confident in evaluating prescriptions to assess their validity. So the impact. I'm also better informed about the code of conduct that I must follow. And by applying these principles, I feel that I'm becoming a more competent pharmacist. I use different techniques to make sure patients understand how to use their medication. And a future learning need I identified is how to correctly use a Seroflow centrifuge actuated inhaler. So she did say what she learned. She did say what the impact was, but what is missing here is the application. So what we want to see here is also how she have applied this new skill that she have mastered, and then future learning needs should be related to domain 5. She said she wants to learn how to correctly use a Seroflow inhaler, but it should be linked more specifically to domain 5 and competency 5.3. Okay, so the next criteria that the evidence should adhere to is it should be current, meaning that the portfolio of evidence entry must relate to exposure during the internship period. So it must therefore be collected during internship years, and they should not include any evidence from the undergraduate years. So this morning I also said to the interns in the workshop that they might use textbooks or certain notes or articles, etc. That is fine. But if they did an activity in their undergraduate year, they worked in a public health or in a clinic where they provided or where they participated in a campaign, they cannot use that activity for their portfolio of evidence because it must be something that happened during the year that they were registered. The evidence must also be valid, so it must pertain to the specific competency being addressed. And if there's calculation errors or factual errors in the evidence, it is deemed not valid, and then the intern will not be successful. So it's important to note that if the evidence is not valid, then it doesn't matter if the evidence is sufficient, if it's current, if it's authentic, if it's properly annotated, the evidence will not be accepted and the intern will not be successful. So what we say, just an example for valid evidence, if the competency standard was about how to make sushi and your evidence shows us what the best sauce is to have with it, then it is of no value. We want to see how you make the sushi, not the sauce that you will be using. Then the last criteria, authentic. Evidence must be authentic. It means that it's your own work or the intern's own work. And this evidence will be verified online by the tutor. So make sure, tutors, that you verify the entries of the interns and that you verify it on time. To help with this process of verification, I always tell my interns that they must bring me the portfolio of evidence activity before they submit. So when they submit for me to verify, it's not the first time that I see this activity. I see it beforehand, we work through it, I give them guidance, what to change, what to add. And by the time that they submit it for verification, I know that I can just make sure that that is the correct document that was uploaded, it's the correct version that they've uploaded, and I can verify it much more quicker. So it's always good. I know that in the pharmacy, there's not always time to do this, but it really helps if you can go through it before they submit it for verification. Then your process is just so much quicker to do. Sufficient. What do we mean with sufficient? So if we look at the behavioral statements, then you will see that there's some competency statements that have a lot of behavioral statements. So if there are 4 or more, then the evidence that you submit must cover at least 75% of the behavioral statements. So if there's 4, then 3 behavioral statements will be 75%. So make sure that your intern have enough evidence, but focus on the quality of the evidence and not on the quantity of the evidence. So one piece of evidence might be sufficient to address more than one behavioral statement. Then if the intern annotate properly and link it properly to the behavioral statements, then it is fine. And they should also not use the same piece of evidence for more than one competency standard. And now, again, this morning, I told the interns that, yes, you will use the GPP or the Pharmacy Act or the Medicines and Related Substances Act for more than one activity. But don't use the prescription that you used for 3.4, where you dispense the prescription and you verify the prescription. Don't use that same one now for 5.3. or for counseling a patient on how to use the medicine that was prescribed. So there's enough activities and enough cases in the pharmacy, enough opportunities to get unique evidence for each competency standard. They should also not submit the entire legislative document, for example, the entire Pharmacy Act or the complete GPP, only those that is necessary or that pertain to their activity. And for those interns in manufacturing, where there might be clauses for intellectual property, they should make sure that if it is confidential, that they do not use that as evidence. So we also always tell the interns that they must put themselves in the assessor's shoes before they submit the evidence. Because we are not in the pharmacy, we cannot see what they are doing. You as the tutor will see what they are doing, and it will probably be easier for you. But we can't see what they do. So that they must think about, if they submit a photo, who is the person on the photo? It is meaningless to put a photo and unless they can identify the people on the photo by annotating. This is me providing training and education, or this is me providing advice on health promotion and disease prevention. This is my tutor under whose supervision I'm working. So they must identify themselves, and but they must still maintain patient confidentiality. The same pages from the SAMF or the GPP reference the name, the edition, the page number, and make sure that they know that it is properly annotated so that it is clear why it's in there. Don't just put the page, but show us how you have worked with that document. Same with delivery notes. What does the delivery note show you? The stock was received, who received it, what did you check on that delivery note, and not just the blank delivery note. And then we also just want to stress that the interns should use the latest version of a document. If it's the scope of practice, then they should not use the GPP. They should rather use legislation, because the legislation was updated and the GPP is not yet updated. So for certain aspects, they will rather make use of the legislation instead of other documents. If they use a website, then we want to see the URL, we want to see the date that they've accessed it and the page numbers. So it is important that they include that on their evidence. So if they provide the evidence, just to summarize, if they use photos, it should not be highly glossy photos, then you can't see who is on the photo. Preferably not uploaded upside down. Evidence must be clear and legible. It goes without saying that if you cannot see what is on the evidence, you cannot assess that. If I have to magnify evidence just to be able to make out what is on it, then it becomes unclear and it cannot be assessed. The evidence must be in one document. What happens if it's more than one document? Interns get confused with the order in which they should upload. So it's easier to make it one document, start labeling it from the top, evidence A or evidence 1, and stick to that format that they label it. And then annotate, annotate, annotate. We cannot stress how important annotation is. So with the annotation, link the evidence to a specific behavioral statement, identify your own signature, identify your tutors or the tutor's signature. They should identify themselves, and explain, as Mrs. Nadia said, why that specific resource was used and how they used it. So if we just think of the type or the kind of evidence that an intern can use if they provide information to a patient. Then it can be the prescription. It can be that they compile a checklist or that they ask the patient to give them feedback. If they provide evidence to a group of people, then it changes. Then we want to see an attendance register. We want to see the presentation or the poster that they used or that they designed, the reference materials that they use, feedback that they got from the audience. So remember, the attendance register must have the presenter's name on, must have the date of the presentation, the venue, even the title, the topic, what was this about. Only one presenter should present because we said they're not allowed to do group activities, so it should be one presenter. If they provide feedback on the presentation, it should reflect the knowledge and the understanding of the audience after the presentation. It's not only rating the person that presented. And again, remember to annotate and link it to the behavioral statements. What if the intern is consulting with a patient? Then patient history is important. So he or she will need to show us the patient history, the prescription, a request form from the patient, the request from the patient, maybe the blue copy, the label that is put on the prescription or on the items, and as well as the reference material that is used. But what if the intern is to consult with a doctor? Then we would want to see the reason for the consultation. For example, there's a prescription with an error on, or there's something that was omitted. The doctor didn't add the dosage or the directions of use, and the intern needed to consult. Then also the reference material that was used, the telephone number of the doctor, the time of the conversation. A lot of times the interns just wrote on the prescription, doctor confirmed the dose, or doctor confirmed the product, or the item. And that's not really sufficient proof of consultation with the doctor. If you make use of references, remember it should be scientific references, so they should not use Wikipedia. It must also be annotated and linked to the behavioral statements. And if it's the SAMF or the MIMS or the GPP that they use, they should include the page numbers and the edition of the resource. So domain 6 pertains to research, and the interns should do a research project. A lot of them, not only those in academia, they do research projects, and they will be working with data. So then they need to tell us the reason for the data collection. What type of data is this? Is this a screening report? Is this data that was analyzed? And again, the annotation here is really important. They must tell us what this is. What is this just a monthly statistics? Is it stop movement? Is this orders? Is this number of prescriptions? Why did I collect this data? So they should tell us, they should give us all of that information in the annotation. Just to re-emphasize the checklist. So there's the checklist also contain the evidence. They must make sure that the evidence is sufficient. So it covered at least 75% of the behavioral statements. Is it annotated so that it is clear why it was included? Has the intern annotated the evidence with the behavioral statements? And does it match the behavioral statements? Is the evidence clear? And has the intern made sure that patient confidentiality is not breached? To summarize, the evidence is proof of what was done. So what did the intern do? It is not just reading the article. It is not the theoretical scenario. It is not the intern witnessing the tutor doing the compounding or dispensing the prescription. It is what the intern have done. And it must convince the assessor that the intern have performed this activity. It must be professional, it must be neat, clear, and not just scribbled on a prescription. So completing the portfolio of evidence entries is a stepwise approach. So the intern will enter and submit online for tutor verification. Then the tutor verifies and submit online, and then you will receive feedback after the assessment from the assessors and or the moderator. Remind the interns, please, that they will have to complete the annual declaration before they start with the CPD cycle. If it's the first time that you log in and you click on CPD and you have not done the annual declaration, it will automatically take you to the annual declaration to complete that. And make sure that you as the tutor verify the entries on or before the deadlines that is published and available in the manual. This morning I also said to the interns, maybe make a copy of that or a printout of that page in the manual and put it up where they can see it, where the intern can see it, and where you as the tutor can see it, to make sure that it is visible and that you get reminded of those deadlines. So when a portfolio of evidence entry is assessed, it is done mostly on a scale of 0 to 3, and to earn 3 marks, all the requirements must be met, and that is done according to the assessment criteria, which is in the manual that Adele referred to and showed you those tables. It's in the manual and it must be used, and we follow that assessment criteria for each of the 4 phases of the CPD cycle. In addition to that, we encourage the interns to use appropriately professional communication style to submit entries that is free of spelling and grammatical errors, that it's properly punctuated, and that trade names is capitalized. So I know we are all human. We are not perfect, and we do make mistakes. But try to tell them that, or I told them this morning to type it in Word, where they can do a spell check, and then once that is done, then they can just copy and paste into the CPD cycle. So on the cycle, online where you submit, it is not, grammar and spelling is not auto-corrected. So it needs to be checked before they submit. So that scale of 0 to 3, 0 is not yet met, or 1 is partially met, 2 is if you have met the requirements, and 3 is fully met. That is when you have that and you have adhered to all of those. So again, in the manual, you can check for the full details of how those marks are allocated. So you will get feedback from the assessor, or the intern will get feedback from the assessors, and I encourage you to ask your intern to show you the feedback that they've get. That they receive from the assessors. There will be comments, and usually you will see the date when it was assessed and when the comment was made. So there will be positive comments to acknowledge that the intern is on the right track, and there might be negative feedback. And with the negative feedback, you will get specific pointers with regards to what the intern did wrong and how they should improve. Especially with regards to the evidence annotation, often annotations is not clear, or it's not sufficient, or it's not done at all. So use the comments as guidelines for next entries. And I said to the interns also, look at the feedback, even if the intern was successful, even when that activity was successful, look at the comments for for future and use it as for future submissions. And then just to remind you as well, there is feedback sessions later in the year, in May and in June, where we give feedback to the interns on the most common areas or mistakes that we came across while we were assessing the portfolio of evidence. So if in the case where the intern's entry is found not yet successful, then they should resubmit a new activity or entry within that domain. And we treat each resubmission as a standalone activity and a new submission. So they should not just add a new piece of evidence to the one that's already uploaded. We only look at the last piece of evidence that was uploaded. There's a date that we can see when it was uploaded. So we know with the resubmission if there was changes or if it's the same evidence and there's no new evidence. And we can see the previous submission and the comments that were made. So we can see if it's a resubmission. We have the option to go and look. We can see it's a second submission or a third submission or even a fourth submission, and then we can see all the previous ones. So we can see if the intern made any changes or not. So to maximize the chance of being eligible to write the intern examination, the interns should submit early and they should submit regularly. If you look at those deadlines, you will see every month there is a submission deadline. So they should submit on a monthly basis. Then their chances of completing the internship on time is guaranteed. So the common errors that we see on resubmission is that the comments of the assessor or the moderator were not followed and not addressed. And sometimes interns make no changes on resubmissions. So interns should know, and you as a tutor could tell your intern and confirm that with your intern, that they don't get assigned a new assessor. So if I am assigned an assessment or an intern to assess that intern's entries, I am that intern's assessor throughout the year, unless something happened to me and the intern should be reassigned. But you have the same assessor and the same moderator throughout the year. Sometimes we also see that evidence is retrospectively falsified to meet the comments of the assessor. It happened regularly, and interns then will then be found not successful again, that they don't submit an attendance register after providing information to a group of patients, especially with competence standard 1.1. There's no attendance register attached, and then on the resubmission, suddenly here out of nowhere appears an attendance register. And then we know that this did not happen. So they should not falsify or just add pieces of evidence. They should start over with a new competency standard. Sometimes we will recommend that it can be corrected. So, for example, it was just breach of patient confidentiality. That is something that can be fixed. So if an intern breached patient confidentiality, it's an automatic not successful. So then we will tell them, you have breached patient confidentiality, just fix that, and they can fix that. But if your evidence was not sufficient, or it's not authentic, or we realize that it's not your own work, the intern's own work, then they must start over. So they must then identify a new learning need, and they must redo that complete activity. And then sometimes when they do have a new learning need, then they fail to adapt or to change the following steps in the cycle. So they will have a new learning need, but they don't follow through and amend the planning to fit the new learning need and amend the implementation to address that gap that they have identified. So they must make sure that all the phases of the cycle align now to the new information that they have provided. To prevent the need for further resubmission, we advise the interns to make sure to follow the assessor's recommendations or comments. And as I've said, your resubmitted portfolio of evidence entry are sent to the same assessor. Don't just resubmit without attending to the reasons for the entry not being successful. And as Adele said, they are allowed to submit 9 portfolio of evidence entries. So that is 6 plus 50% resubmissions. So they can resubmit 3 of them if it's necessary. And only after the 10th, from 10 and more, then they will have to pay that 327 Rand fee. So if the intern is dissatisfied with the outcome of the portfolio of evidence entry assessment, they may apply for a remark, but they must apply in writing within 30 days or 1 calendar month following the official release of the results. If they only realize 2 months after or 3 months or later in the year that they want this to be remarked, then it will not be considered. And there's also a non-refundable remarking fee of 327 Rand that is payable upon submission of the application, and you must provide the proof of payment with the request. And the same portfolio of evidence entry that was assessed must be resubmitted unchanged. So then they're not allowed to change anything or to amend or to add or to make corrections. It's not permitted because the purpose of remarking is to review the original assessment only. And then in most cases, they will either ask a moderator to look at it or they will ask a different assessor to look at that. And then the results will be finalized and released within 14 days from the date of receipt of a complete application, including the proof of payment. So within 2 weeks, the intern will have the result of that reassessment. Professionalism is really important. We are professional persons in our practice every day. And interns should be warned against plagiarism. We have a system, a Turnitin system, where the activity is sent for similarity checking. And if the score, the similarity score is 20% or above, then that entry will be sent back to the intern. The portfolio of evidence entry must reflect the intern's own work, not someone else's that they used, not AI generated, must be their own work. And we do identify those. We do get that if it's not own work. And then if we see irregularities, it will be referred to the Professional Conduct Department of Council, and there will be penalties, and they will be applied, and they will be severe. And this whole portfolio of evidence submissions are not just another hurdle, they are an opportunity for the interns to further develop their professionalism. And just a reminder of Ethical Rule 16 states, failing as a supervising pharmacist responsible for the practical training of a pharmacist intern or a pharmacist assistant to carry out his duties, or failing to attend in good time to the administrative duties attached to the registration of the pharmacist intern or the pharmacist assistant. So you as tutor will also then breach the ethical rules if your intern's portfolio of evidence entry is falsified or not their own. Confidentiality is very important. As I've said, if the patient confidentiality is breached, it is automatically not yet successful, and it must be maintained at all times. Help your intern check on prescriptions, on trailer labels, on Schedule 6 registers, patient files. Make sure that the patient's name or any way that the patient can be identified is hidden. If there's a patient's cell phone number, if I can identify that patient, if I can phone that number and that person answers the phone, then patient confidentiality was breached. Remember, it only applies to patients, not to doctors or hospitals or other facilities or colleagues in the pharmacy. So they should not black out or blur out the names of staff members on attendance registers. Otherwise, it can become just blank evidence with nothing on it, then it cannot be assessed. So make sure that the name and any other identifying detail is completely obscured. And sometimes untidy scribbles, as you see on this slide, is not effective, and you can still make out the name of the surname of the person. Also check, sometimes they put on those blocks like we did on the left side here, and when they convert the evidence to PDF, sometimes that block shifts. And although the intention was there to maintain patient confidentiality, it was not maintained. And the intern still breaches patient confidentiality. So make sure if you verify the activity or the entry online, that you check the evidence for patient confidentiality. So the next few slides we have included as a decision-making aid. So you will see that some competency standards is recommended, some we say is possible, and some we say is challenging. So if we say recommended, it means that this is a good choice and it should not present any problems for any intern to do that. If we say it's possible, they should consider it very carefully, and they should only choose that competency standard then if they are able to collect valid and sufficient evidence. And if we say this is a challenging competency standard, we actually say avoid this competency standard. It will be extremely difficult to complete with sufficient evidence. And remember that the domains and the competency standards is aimed at all pharmacists, regardless of your level of experience or number of years that you have practiced. So some will be challenging, and it is best to avoid them. So once these slides are published online, go again and look again at all of these and what is recommended and what do we say you should rather not attempt. So we're just going to go quickly through these slides. So in domain 1, we recommend 1.1, but remember that it is about public health. And 1.6, but then you need to include screening activities. So for domain 1, 1.1 is recommended, and 1.6 is recommended. 1.2, 3, and 4 is challenging, and the interns seldomly successful when they select those. Domain 2, we recommend 2.1 and 2.2. 2.1 is patient consultation. 2.2 is patient counseling. And we also recommend 2.6, which is pharmacist-initiated therapy. Those are the ones that interns fare the best in. 2.8 is only for interns that is involved in a registered clinical trial, and they won't be able to do that at all. In domain 3.1 is possible, but that is only for interns in the manufacturing sector. No other sector intern will be able to complete 3.1. Recommend 3.2, 3.4, but it's got a lot of behavioral statements, and it covers all the dispensing activities, so make sure that the evidence is sufficient there. And then we also recommend 3.5, which is compounding. But here you must include, the intern must include a discussion on the application of pharmaceutical principles. It can be bulk or extemporaneous compounding that they should do. Then in domain 4, the recommended competency standard is 4.6, where they should apply SOPs and apply policies. And the rest is, it's possible to do 4.1, but it is more focused on HR management. 4.2 is challenging. 4.3 is possible, but interns tend to struggle a bit, but we advise that you do 4.6. Domain 5, it is 5.3 is the compulsory competency standard. They are not allowed to do any other competency standard. Then domain 6, we recommend 6.2, can be used for training pharmacist assistants in the workplace as within their scope of practice. 6.3 is possible, but only if you are an academic intern, and because it's only applicable to formal training of undergraduate students. And then 6.6 is recommended. 6.7 is not possible to do. It cannot be completed by interns. 6.8 is challenging, and maybe academic interns can attempt that, but we recommend 6.2 or 6.6. So now the intern is ready to complete the cycle, and now we have some guidelines pertaining to some of the evidence that they might need for the selected competency standards in each domain. So again, we're just going to go quickly through the recommended ones. In domain 1 competency standard 1.1, they must show how they provide the information on the poster that they use to promote health. And the evidence could include an attendance register, the poster that they use, the resources that they use. In domain 2, 2.1 and 2.2 were the recommended competency standards. The nature of the problem, they should state that. The consultation area, how did that look? The duration of the consultation, the language used, sensitive and insensitive issues. If they do 2.6, the pharmacist initiated therapy, they could include information pamphlet relating to the condition, the referral letter, why, the reason for the referral, to whom was it addressed. They can use they must include the plan that they're going to use, the we said that 3.4 is recommended and 3.5. 3.5 is compounding. So the evidence that they include should show the understanding of pharmaceutical knowledge. And they should remember that the expiry date for extemporaneous compounding should not exceed 30 days. If we move to domain 4, if we look at 4.6, they must show how they applied an SOP and a policy. And they must show application of the complete SOP, not just a part of the SOP. They must cover the complete SOP, show us how they apply it, and they must add additional, I always say, evidence to prove application, to show the application. And then you cross-link to that. 5.3, the compulsory competency standard. It must include annotated extracts of the applicable acts or legislation or code of conduct with keeping abreast of changes, and that is competence behavioral statement C, means using current or recently amended legislation. And how do you keep updated with that? And they must remember to include their annotated professional indemnity certificate. And then for domain 6, we say the recommended ones are 6.2 and 6.6 for the majority of interns. So 6.2, they must include evidence that the training is part of an agreed training plan. They must clarify the role of the more experienced colleague. And then for 6.6, it's a research one. They should submit a complete research project with the results, not just the proposal. And they must show evidence of approval of the proposal or the protocol. We have a short poll that the tutors should attempt before we move on. And I think Natalie will post the link in the chat where you can access that. And then she'll also show the results of the poll. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment, then council can share. Natalie, are we doing the poll?
Miranda, just give me one moment, please.
Perfect. Okay, so here we see some of the responses, the common challenges that you have experienced in your role as an intern tutor. So we see time is a issue. CPDs being returned due to insufficient evidence, that is a challenge. Intern needs to know they are also having to drive the CPD process. That is important. It's not just your responsibility as the tutor, it's the intern's responsibility. It is, after all, their internship. I think we should move on back to the presentation. Okay. So some of the challenges that was identified by tutors, and this was at the Lekotla that we had the assessors and moderators. This is says 2024, but it's the same 2025. Challenges that interns experience as identified by tutors: lack of planning capabilities, independent learning ability, lack of comprehensive analysis capability, insufficient preparation, and then also communication. They lack communication skills. Creativity is an issue, teamwork, time management. A lot of interns really struggle with time management. And then lack of enthusiasm and initiative, no sense of responsibility. As one of the tutors just mentioned, the interns should realize that they should drive the whole process. Low morale and an increase of mental health issues that interns experience. Tutor challenges, as identified by tutors, lack of a teaching plan. There's a disconnect between learning and practical work. So what tutors feel that what interns or students learn at university does not really fit into practical work. There's limited tutor support. There's not a defined support system for tutors. Non-standardized approach to CPDs, limited time allocated for verification. That is true because we all know interns wait until the last submission, until the submission deadline before they submit, and then you have less time to verify. Whereas if they submit before the deadline, then you will have more time to verify. And then assessment versus compliance submission. We all know that a lot of you is not just the tutor, you're also the RP of the pharmacy. So you have a workload and you don't have enough hours in the day. There's no incentives for tutors. And there's an incongruency between the tutor and the intern. So I think we as tutors need to acknowledge that if we see that there are certain challenges that arise, that we must make work of it and address those challenges before it becomes a really, really big issue. So some of the challenges identified by tutors is being made to check the portfolio of evidence with limited time, given multiple portfolios to assess at once. That is when the interns submit more than one at a time. Intern work attendance versus portfolio time management. So they say that the interns they're not good with time management. Lack of communication with portfolios that have been returned. So the tutor, these tutors need to ask our students or our interns to show us the feedback that they got. I know as a tutor, we cannot always see the comments, cannot view after it was assessed, and we should ask the interns to show us the feedback that they received. And often the interns rather do the portfolios on their own and ask you to check it later. Adele also said that we should communicate and work together with the interns and be involved in the interns' portfolio of evidence. Remember, we can also use this as a CPD of our own because we learn and we grow through this whole process of being a tutor. Challenges that interns experience or identified is that it's not clear for them on how to start, and that they do not meet up together to share their wins and their setbacks. So we should encourage interns not just to talk with us as the tutors, but to have that interaction with their peers. In a lot of institutions or pharmacies, there's more than one intern in that facility. And they should talk to one another. What worked? What didn't work? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? So they need to share their experiences and then their wins. If they were successful, they need to share that win and celebrate that win. And if it's a setback, then it is just a setback. We will fix this and we will continue and we will grow through this. Some of the process challenges, owners or employers have access to monitor the intern's progress on the SAPC website. These access rights may also be delegated. So in some instances that if it's a corporate, then they can see the progress of the interns and they can see how they are progressing. So some of the other challenges were system downtime when council must do maintenance work, delinking of tutor and intern profiles, because there should be renewal of training accreditation, the whole exclusion of the tutor on the feedback process. That is something that we are working on, but that is where you must ask your intern to show you the feedback that they get. No access of learner marks by the tutor, only outcomes. That is unfortunately how the system works. We only say that you are successful or not yet successful. We don't give you marks. It's not like in university where you can score 60% or 100. It's successful or not successful. And then a part of the section view of the CPD, it's parts of you view it on different screens and it does limit the flow of the documents. So how does the verification process work? You need to evaluate the entire portfolio of evidence entry, not just a certain part of it. You must make sure that all the elements of authentication are present. And most importantly, verify online upon completion by the intern. You can accept and release it to SAPC, or you can suggest how the intern can improve the portfolio of evidence entry, checking for plagiarism, confidentiality, and then send it back. Always check the quality. Interact to guide the intern to see how they can improve the portfolio of evidence entry. And remember, you are the mentor, you are the coach, you have a coaching role, and you are a role model. And the value that you can add with the experience that you have for practicing many more years than the interns. And that brings us to the end of this presentation, this part. Ask that you please complete the attendance register. It will also be, the link will be posted in the chat, so that we know that you are here. And I think Tabang will speak about the conference later in the year. And then once Tabang is finished, we will also have some time for questions. Thank you, Tabang. You can take over now.
Yes, thank you, Rianda. So we're going to take a 10 minutes break just to stretch, and then we'll come back at 8:05 to do the last presentation and to have a question and answer session. Thank you. Good evening, tutors. So we are going to continue with our second presentation. Rihanna, clarify me if you can hear me.
Yes, Tabang, we can hear you.
One of the presenters. Okay, thank
We
you.
can hear you.
So, okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So we're going in this presentation. It's a very short presentation. We will be looking at the performance of the interns with regards to portfolio of evidence. And then we are also going to touch on the plagiarism detection, which my colleagues have already spoken about. And then lastly, we'll be navigating the CPD platform, paying attention on the tutor verification part. And then that will be the end of my presentation. So with regard to the portfolio of evidence compliance statistics, this is over a period of 3 years. So we are monitoring performance of interns because our intention is to get to 100% compliance of interns every year. So from 2023, you can see that we had a 69% of interns who were successful in 6 portfolio of evidence entries or who were compliant. And then the percentage improved to 80% in 2024. And in 2025, we slightly improved to 84%. So we have included the slide just to share with you, tutors, so that you can see that you are doing a good job, and we're really appreciating what you are doing. And I believe through these interventions, we'll eventually manage to get to our target of 100% compliance rate. So the plagiarism detection system for intern portfolio of evidence entries. So this system was introduced just to help the office to ensure that interns are submitting their own work, and also to make sure that the entries that are submitted by interns are of good quality. So what happens here is that each portfolio of evidence entry submitted by the intern will be subjected to plagiarism detection prior to submission for tutor verification, and the system will check for similarity between portfolio of evidence entries submitted by current interns against the existing database of portfolio of evidence entries submitted by the current and the past interns. And the tutors will have the view-only access to the plagiarism report without the ability to modify or exclude matches. So we will discuss this as we'll be going through the verification process, and I hope at that stage it will make more sense. So I've included the process for submission of portfolio of evidence entry for plagiarism detection. This process is usually what is followed by the intern when they do in their submission, but we included it here so that you can know what is it that is expected of the interns, and in case they are struggling, you could be able to assist them. So what is important to note here is that each portfolio of evidence entries submitted by the intern will be subjected to the plagiarism detection prior to submission for tutor verification, and the maximum acceptable similarity score is 20%. So when the intern are recording their portfolio of evidence at the evaluation step, the system will request them to submit their entry for similarity check. And then when they have selected that submit for similarity check, there will be a EULA, I mean Tenit EULA, wherein the intern is expected to accept the EULA by clicking on yes. Otherwise, if they click on no, they won't be able to proceed with the process of submitting their entries for similarity check. Once they have selected yes, then the entry will be submitted and there will be a submission confirmation message that will be displayed. And then after that, a similarity report will be generated and the intern will be able to view the results. So sometimes the similarity report gets generated immediately. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer depending on the business of the system at that time. So interns should know that they may be able to receive their report immediately or after some time. So in case they are panicking, please reassure them that they will get their reports after some time. And then when the report is available, the intern should go through it. And if the similarity score is greater than 20%, then the intern should go back to try and look at the areas that were identified as similar and try to work on it and make another submission until the similarity score is within the acceptable percentage. And then once the similarity score is within the acceptable percentage and the intern is happy, then they can submit their entry for tutor verification. So once the entry has been submitted for tutor verification, the interns won't be able to see it because it will be with the tutor at that moment. So the other thing that I want to mention is that currently the plagiarism detection system is still undergoing maintenance. So once it is the maintenance is completed and everything is in order, you will be notified. Meaning at the moment, when interns are ready to submit their entries for assessment, please don't discourage them. They may do so. And when the system is ready, we will notify you so that they can submit their entries for similarity check. So before we look at what you as the assessors or as the tutors will see on the similarity report, I just want to go through the CP dashboard as a refresher and also for the benefit of the new tutors. So when you are on the CPD dashboard, please remember that you can only access this dashboard after you have done your annual declaration. Just like the interns, I think Rianda touched on it, even pharmacists, they can only access the CPD dashboard once they have done their annual declaration. So here, when you are on the CPD dashboard, you will see there will be a number of functions there. And when you want to do the verification, you will click on verification. And once you have clicked on that, it will take you to a window that looks like this, wherein you will be able to see the intern who has submitted the portfolio of evidence entry, which is awaiting verification. So you will be able to see the P number of that intern, the name, the total number of entries submitted, and those that are awaiting verification. So when you are on the side, then you going to click the view that is appearing there in green. And then after clicking the view, you will be able to see all the entries that that particular intern has submitted, whether they are awaiting for submission or for assessment or whatever. All the entries will appear. And when you want to do the verification, you will look for the view that is indicated towards the far right. So meaning all these two entries with the view at the far right, they are waiting for you to verify. So you're going to click on view. Then once you have clicked on view, the entry will be opened, and then you are going to see all the 4 steps of a CPD. And on the first step, that is reflection, this is what you will see. On your left-hand side, it will be the description that has been recorded by the intern. And then on the right-hand side, there is an assessment criteria. So this is, we have included it there to assist you as the tutor when you are evaluating the intern's entry, just to look at the assessment criteria or the requirements that the entry must address in order for the intern to be successful. So for all the steps of the CPD, you will find the assessment criteria. Please make sure that you compare the entry with the criteria, and in case there are things that the intern didn't address, feel free to advise them so that, you know, when their entries are coming for assessment, everything is there, because we don't want the interns to be repeating this entry. Sometimes it's discouraging them. So let's try to give them as much support as we can. And when you are done to evaluate the first step, you just click on the continue tab there at the bottom right, and then it will take you to the next step, that is planning. And then you will also see the entry that the intern has recorded, as well as the assessment criteria. If you want to go back, maybe you want to check something or to double check from the reflection step, you just click on this tab there at the bottom left. But if you want to continue to the next step, you're going to click the continue, which is at the bottom right. And then that will take you to the third step, that is the implementation step. So in this step, there are 2 things that you will be evaluating. Firstly, you will be evaluating the description that the intern has provided. And then from there, you will also evaluate the evidence that the intern has provided. So the evidence will appear. I've provided there is a red rectangle there with document and the date. That's where you will find the evidence. You just click there and then it will open, and then you will be able to see if everything has been addressed in relation to the assessment criteria, and if it is also in line with the description that the intern has provided. And then when you're done with your evaluation, then you click continue to move on to the next step. That is the evaluation step. So here you will also go through the description that the intern has provided. The assessment criteria is also provided for you to compare, and just to make sure that everything has been addressed. And then when you are done with the 4 steps of that entry, we are done with the evaluation. The next step will be for you to view the plagiarism report. So you will be able to access the plagiarism report by clicking on the view plagiarism report there at the bottom. It is in red. And then that will open the report, and you will see whether the intern has, the similarity score is within the acceptable percentage of 20%, or if it's more than the 20%. And then we will look at the report, how it looks like. And then the other tab at the evaluation step at the bottom there is return to intern. So this means that in case you are not happy with the entry, you want the intern to make some corrections here and there, you're going to click on that tab, return to intern, and advise the intern on the areas that needs to be fixed. And then the submit for assessment, this tab you will only click if you are happy with the entry that the intern has provided. If you are happy with the description provided in the 4 steps, as well as the plagiarism report. So let's go look at how the plagiarism report looks like. So this is the summary report that will appear. So on this report, you will be able to see the date on which the report was generated, and also you will be able to see the overall match percentage there. So it is important to take note of the date generated, just to make sure that we are not looking at the report that was generated long ago. You know, when you're working with systems, sometimes there are glitches which can disturb the functionality of the system. So just make sure that you pay attention to that. And then for this intern, the overall match percentage was 2. So in this case, the intern is within the acceptable similarity score. So if everything is fine, then you can submit the entry for assessment. But while you are still on this summary report, let's say maybe you want to view the areas which there were some matches, and you want to see the full report. So you're going to click on the tab that is written Open PDF Report there at the bottom. And then once you have clicked there, it will give you the full report. And then the areas where there were matches will be highlighted. In this case, they are highlighted in blue, and then it shows that this is the first match, and then when you go down, you'll be able to see the next match. It's just that the next match was on a different page. You can't see it here, but that's what you will see when you're looking at the report. So the other thing that you will be able to see on this report is the source type. So it will tell you whether the similarities are due to the work that was submitted previously or what. So that will also give you an idea whether your intern has plagiarized or not. And then when you're done, then you will decide if everything is okay. Like I said, you will submit, click the submit for assessment. But if there are corrections to be made, you will return the entry to the intern. And then so when you are on the report and you want to go back to the 4th step, that is the evaluation, wherein you will either return the entry to the intern or you submit, you just click on the back button and then it will take you back to the evaluation step, which is this one. So when you are on the Tutor portal, when you are done with the verification process, you will be able, after you have, you will be able to see the date on which the entry was verified. So it's important to check after you have done the verification if this date is appearing, especially when you are submitting the entry for assessment. In case there are maybe a different date is appearing there, please notify us so that we can attend to it. Because these dates are important, especially when we are releasing the results. So take note of that as well. And then I think that's all with regard to the Tutor portal. Like I said, my presentation is very short. There is a link that will be shared with you. Please make sure that you complete it because we're going to use it as an attendance register, and also to know how can we improve our workshops in future. And before we go to the question session, we just want to let you know that Council will be hosting the 4th National Pharmacy Conference, which will be held on the 10th to the 13th of October 2026. And this will be held at Devon ICC. And there is a theme that is a glimpse into the future, advancing pharmacy towards 2050, I'm sorry. And then please note that there is early bird registration, which will close on the 31st May 2025. Please take advantage of that. And then for more information, please go to our website, and then you will find all the details regarding the 4th National Pharmacy Conference. We are really excited, and we would appreciate if you can come and experience the conference. There will be so many lessons that will also assist you to tutor the future interns better. And yeah, with that, then let's go on to the question session. Thank you. Over to you, Natalie.
Thank you, Tabang. Tutors, if you're joining us on Microsoft Teams, please type in your questions in the question and answer section. If you're watching with us on YouTube, please type your questions in the comment section. We will get to read them. Right now, there are no questions. We'll just give the tutors a few minutes to ask us whatever's bugging them.
Yes, so Nat, while we are trying to see if questions can come forth, let me give Malalo an opportunity to clarify something. Thank you.
Good evening, tutors. We just want to conscientize, as part of the presentations did focus on the requirements to remain a registered tutor, that while some of you who are new may have applied and obviously were compliant or on track with your CPD submissions, just to ensure that you stay registered, you'd need to have submitted the 2025 required CPD entries before the end of the month, which is the 28th of February 2026. And if that is not done, unfortunately, it will negatively impact on the interns because your tutor registration will be taken away from you if you're not compliant to the CPD requirements for 2025. There will be messaging going out, so just be aware. So please take advantage of the information that's being circulated on the drive for compliance because it's quite important for your role. Thank you.
Thank you, Malalo. Nat, you'll let us know if there are questions.
Nothing at the moment. Let's give it another minute. Bang, it looks like we've answered everybody's questions in the presentation. So if you would like to close, we can.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. So this brings us to the end of our workshop, and we want to thank all the tutors who managed to join us today, even and those who have joined us during our previous workshop on the 6th of February. We really appreciate your contributions towards making the intent successful in the portfolio of evidence. And the presentation will be made available on the SAPC website from tomorrow on the 12th of February. So for tutors who couldn't manage to join us, please let them know that the presentation will be there and they can go through it just to make sure that they are aware of what's happening, and also to just make sure that they will be in a position to guide the interns in the right direction. And with those few words, I want to...
Bang, sorry. A question has just come through. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I am a first-time tutor of a pharmacist intern. With the verification process, the return to intern, was that a button or is this done in person first?
Okay, they return when they... Okay, thank you, Net. I think the tutor is asking where to return the entry to the intern. So under the evaluation page, there is a tab there in the middle that is in red there, that is return to intern. That's where you're going to click at that tab when you want to return the entry to the intern to make some necessary changes to the entry. Thank you.
Tabang, can I maybe add to that? And I think Rianda mentioned it as well. What we do with our interns is we ask them to bring us a hard copy, and then we discuss that to make sure that we don't have to resend or to divert it back to the intern. I find it easier for myself not to divert back, but to stop the intern from submitting the submission if it's faulty. So it's easier for me as a tutor to look at it firsthand on paper, to see the submission, to go through that. And when I'm satisfied, I tell my intern, okay, you can now go and submit online. That's just it, that maybe that will work for this tutor as well.
Okay, thank you, Adele. Any other question, Ned?
No, that's it. Thank you, Tabang.
Okay, so let me continue with my closing remarks. I just want to thank colleagues from the office, assessors and moderators for your contributions towards making this workshop a success. And with those few words, I wish you a good evening and goodbye all.
Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy your evening.
Bye, everyone.